Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Major developments, tectonic shifts on this planet right here. And that is, the Americans agree that the war in Ukraine was not, as they say, the media operatives, unprovoked. Do you remember there are two words that we have to add whenever we talk about the Ukraine war and the Russian aggression. Aggression is one thing. The other one is unprovoked and unjustifiable. That is, the war just happened. It was the Ukrainians slash, how do you call those guys? NATO did not provoke anybody. And then the other one is you can't argue. You can't, bring any arguments to support that, hey, maybe we can bring a justification why we intervened in Ukraine. So unjustifiable, that is irrational, you can't justify it right there. And the other one is nobody provoked you. Well, we have here Mr. Steve Witkoff, or Witkov, as I would like to call him. Yes, he's a Middle Eastern envoy, US Middle East envoy. He's Jewish, of course. And he says that actually the Ukraine war was kind of provoked, and he says exactly who provoked it. And it's this exact suspect, which is NATO. He says it. All right, that's the first topic we have here. A second one, Vladimir Putin sat down for a little interview, and he's going to talk about, or at least I'm going to have a few topics. The first one talks about toxic Zelensky, rational Trump, the role of Europe in the negotiations, military and trade relations with the United States of America, and rare earth cooperation. So the Americans, United States of America, joins the axis of evil, joins those guys. You'll see. It's a new distribution, not distribution because they take over, but they deal it, of resources, global resources, and the Russians and the Americans will cooperate. Why? What resources does Europe have? Just ignore Norway. Get Norway out. Europe is not able to cover its gas and oil in the Nordic Sea. All right, let's move on. We're going to discuss the major deals. According to Putin, there's major deals ready to be negotiated between the Russians and the Americans. I don't see the Europeans anywhere here. But they will be probably accepted at the negotiation table. Just to take notes, that's all. They will not have a say. And if they are invited, then I guarantee you the Chinese are invited and the Indians are invited. Now, Russia is open to US-Russian economic cooperation. So they're ready to exchange resources, which is, we're going to give you cheap resources, you give us technology. Usually, not that the Russians are dumb or something. Trump teases economic development with Russia as he marks the third year of the war in Ukraine. So yeah, as I always say, and if you look in general in wars, the economic factor is the initiator, is a spark. Sometimes there are some other imbecilic reasons, but mainly that's what it is. Now, Putin offers to sell rare earth minerals to the United States, including from occupied territories of Ukraine. Oh man, you can't make shit up. United States refuses to blame Russia for Ukraine war. Splitting with European allies in United Nations votes. So what does it mean? The Europeans were never allies. The Europeans were used. You're allied to use you in order to achieve something that I want. When the Europeans want to achieve something and they ask the Americans for it, if there's nothing for the Americans in that, they will not participate. Like, look right now. The Americans drop their Ukraine attempt on Russia, and the Europeans are still going. They're still, how do you call it? Inertia? That's how you call it? Inertia? Like, it just goes, to accelerate, take your foot off the pedal, and the car just goes on like coasting. But it takes longer for the Europeans. Why? They are, first, I think they are incompetent. Jesus Christ, incompetent. I don't think they are. They understand what's going on. They're weak. they're cowards, and they depend on the United States of America too much, which is 99%, I would say. So the United States refuses to blame Russia in front of everybody in the United Nations. And then we find out that United States of America sides with China, North Korea, and Russia, the new axis. I mean, what do you have, Europe? Consumers. That's all you got. It's beautiful towns, used to have a great economy in the past, manufacturing jobs and economy. You still have beautiful towns, clean still, but once you're going to be infected, and you are infected already with then you're going to lose that too, and you're going to be like, and as I said many times, old whore waiting to, needs attention nobody will give. All right, so let's start with the first topic. 1, 2, 3, PPP. All right, Russia Today. Ukraine conflict was provoked. Trump advisor. The US promise of NATO membership for Kiev triggered the hostilities. Why did I always say 1991 and then I mentioned 2008 and then I mentioned 2014? These are the capital aggressive moves by United States of America through NATO against Russia. In 1991, I will bring this again here. Then the Secretary of State, James Baker of the United States of America. All right, so the state, like Rubio is right now. He said, like foreign minister, he promised the Soviets/Russians then, if you agree, they couldn't take it. If you agree for the Germans' unification, then there will be no 1 inch, no expansion of NATO eastward. That was in 1991. As far as I remember, Germany was allowed by the Soviets, Russians, to unify, but the other guys did not hold or keep their side of the bargain. It was nothing written, it's true, but it was a gentleman agreement. So these guys are thugs, and then they want, hey, we are the civilized ones, and you have to believe us, and you are the guy who broke exactly what? Well, exactly the Russians broke. I can give you more than that. So nevertheless, this was the first one. The second one was, let's say, 2008, when in Bucharest, NATO summit, George W. Bush said one day Ukraine and Georgia will join NATO. No, they couldn't, because in 1994 in Budapest they signed a memorandum. The US, the Europeans, the Russians, and Ukraine, which guaranteed Ukraine's neutrality, and that it's not going to be attacked by anybody. Security. But in 2014, someone again broke something, got Ukraine out of its neutrality. How? Helping a bloody coup in Kiev. So when that happened, that means the neutrality was broken in the signed treaty in 1994 in Budapest. So they lied not only the 1991 no-inch expansion, 1994 neutrality, and after 2014 the Americans immediately recognized the guys who overthrew a democratically elected government. So, and then in 2021, when the Russians want to talk to them about what's going on in Donbass, these guys didn't want to hear it. So again, these guys say it's unprovoked. Oh, here it is. They say, wait a second, that triggered the hostilities. The Ukrainian conflict was, and I'm quoting, provoked, and is wrong to solely blame Russia. Steve Witkoff, a senior advisor, I think he's going to go after Rubio's job. He's going to be appointed probably Secretary of State. I mean, he's got all the name, he's got the origin, he's got the support, so he's going to be there. I have no doubt with that. I mean, not no doubt, but I see that happening. All right, so here he says, a senior advisor to US President Donald Trump, he said, Moscow had to respond to a security threat created by the West's promises to accept Ukraine into NATO, he stated. Let's see what exactly he said. The situation is not black and white, with Russia being the bad guys, quote unquote, Witkoff told CNN Jake Tapper, to borrow from Mark Dice. The war didn't need to happen, it was provoked. He added, it doesn't necessarily mean it was provoked by the Russians. According to Witkoff, there were all kinds of conversations about Ukraine joining NATO prior to the conflict that were treated by Moscow as a direct threat to its security and prompted it to respond. I think that was clear. So this is, my friends, what it is with the unprovoked and with provoked. So the Americans made the G7 take out the Russian aggression condemnation. So again, they are trying to bring reason, I would say. As he said, it's not solely on the Russians. All right, move on. Go to the next one. The next one is Vladimir Putin interview that occurred yesterday. Rational Trump, toxic Zelensky, and shackled European Union. Key points from latest Putin interview. The Russian president highlighted Moscow's strategic positioning on economic, military, and diplomatic cooperation with Moscow. So, toxic Zelensky, this is what he says. Vladimir Zelensky is a toxic figure for Ukrainian society. Unjustifiably high losses, if not catastrophic ones. So he talks about it got driven by obscure political motives. Then they led to unjustifiably high losses, if not catastrophic ones. And it says here that his chances of winning an election are absolutely zero, unless, of course, something is blatantly rigged. It says here that if negotiations start, this will sooner or later lead to lifting martial law, and as soon as that happens, elections must be held. Rational Trump. Putin suggested that Trump sees Zelensky as an obstacle for stabilizing Ukraine and securing a peace deal. And I'm quoting, Trump likely understands that Zelensky is a destabilizing factor. He wants to bring Ukrainians back together, consolidate its society, and create conditions for the survival of the Ukrainian state. Putin strongly disagreed with addressing Trump's position on Ukraine plays into Russia's hand. In the current situation, strange as it may seem, we would be more interested in Zelensky sitting there and further corrupting the regime with which we are in an armed conflict, and from the point of view of strengthening Ukrainian statehood, it is necessary to act in a completely different direction to bring the power to those who will enjoy the trust of the people of Ukraine. The Russian president also commented on Trump's political style, rejecting the notion that the US president acts based on purely emotion. No, of course not. His actions are based on cold calculation and a rational approach to the situation, the role of Europe. Putin argued that European politicians are shackled by their past commitments and are unable to change their approach to Ukraine without losing credibility. He says here that I'm quoting, Ukraine, unlike the newly elected US president, European leaders are tied to the current regime in Kiev. They are too invested and have made too many promises. They could be broken. They did it before. They will do it again. Don't worry about it. He says that the response was emotional and lacked practical meaning. Instead of addressing real issues, they focus on maintaining appearances. That is Europe's reaction to US-Russian diplomatic interactions. Too emotional and focus on maintaining appearances. That means lying. Their participation is welcome, of course. We have never refused to engage with them. About the, EU officials have said the US of negotiations, they want to be involved. You will be taking notes. He also noted that Moscow values the effort of non-European actors, such as BRICS nations, in promoting peace. Not only Europeans, but other countries as well have the right to participate, and we respect that. So, as I said, they will bring the Chinese, Indians, probably Brazilians, whomever they feel like, stacking their side. Military and trade relations with the US. He says, Putin responded positively to Trump's proposal to cut defense spending, indicating Moscow's openness to negotiations. We are not against it. The idea is good. And he says here that for many years, US trade policy has been tied to sanctions. We consider these sanctions illegal and harmful to global trade. Each country determines independently what is beneficial. I can understand the logic about the tariffs. The more production backs home creates jobs, forces taxes to be paid, but at some point, of course, these actions will encounter certain difficulties associated with inflationary pressure. Rare earth cooperation. And this is what he says. We would be ready to offer this to our American partners if they showed interest in working together, he stated, clarifying that this applies to both private companies and government entities. He stressed that Russia has significantly larger reserves and rare earth metals than Ukraine, making it a global leader in the field. So they're ready. Let's bring it on. Next, Russia and US discussing major deals, Putin. So, strategic approach to economic cooperation with Washington. And he says some Russian and American companies are in contact and discussing major projects. Yeah, they will do that. Why? Business, my friends, business. That's it. They can sell whatever they want, just stay away from my money, right? Russia open to US-Russian economic cooperation. Russia is open to US-Russian economic cooperation, which is key to increasing and the sustainability of the global economy. Russian Direct Investment Fund CEO and Special Presidential Representative for Investment Economic Cooperation with Foreign Countries, Kirill Dmitriev, said on Monday. He was also sent to Riyadh, if I remember correctly, right there. The guy who was also at Harvard, if I remember correctly, or anyway, Ivy League in US. Not that I support that. So yeah, they are ready to do it. Next one. Trump teases economic development with Russia and he marks the third year of the war in Ukraine. So this is what he says. President Trump, I am in serious discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia concerning the ending of the war and also major economic development transactions which will take place between the United States and Russia. You got it? Talks are proceeding very well. Oh my God. What are we going to do about it? Putin offers to sell rare earth minerals to US, including from occupied territories of Ukraine. This is according to Ukrainians, obviously. US refuses to blame Russia for Ukraine war, splitting with European allies in United Nations vote. So the Americans, oh, there you go. What do you have? US ambassador voted in the United Nations Security Council Monday at the United Nations, United Nations. In a dramatic shift in transatlantic relations under President Donald Trump, the United States split with its allies, European allies, by refusing to blame Russia for its invasion of Ukraine in votes on 3 UN resolutions, Monday seeking an end to the So, 3 times they said no. The US then so let's start with this one. Right. In the United Nations General Assembly, the US joined Russia in voting against a Euro-backed Ukrainian resolution that calls out Moscow's aggression and demands an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops. So the first one, they joined the Russians, the Americans. The second one, the US then abstained from voting on its own competing resolution after Europeans, led by France, succeeded in amending it to make clear Russia was the aggressor. The voting was taking place on the 3rd anniversary, So they abstained. It was a major setback for the Trump administration, The US then pushed for a vote on its original draft in the more powerful United Nations Security Council, where resolutions are legally binding, and it has a veto power along with China, Russia, Britain, and France. The vote in its 15-member council was 10-0, with 5 European countries abstaining, Britain, France, Denmark, Greece. So they didn't even dare to do squat, these guys. Nothing. Got it, my friends? And what do we have here? Senior Tories attack Trump over new axis after US sides with China, North Korea, and Russia. Well, you have to, how should I put it? Put it straight. There are the laws of nature and adaptability, strength, physical strength, mental strength are usually a determinant in surviving and winning battles, whatever they are. Not self-identification of being strong, or self-identification that you are smart, or self-identification that you are adaptable. That's zero, that's unnatural. You don't see a coyote showing out, or let's put it not a coyote, because how do you call it, a jackal? You don't see a jackal meeting a lion on the savannah and saying, you know what, lion, I identify as a elephant right now, I'm going to fuck you up. And the lion would say, oh my God, you really are an elephant. I'm going to just put my tail between my legs and my balls and go somewhere else. You won't see that. That's irrational, unnatural. And then the coyote comes first, and then the jackal. The jackal comes and eats the prey that the lion took from the lionesses, right? Because anyway. So it doesn't work like that. So when you see in your society your boss with pink hair and self-identification and doing and not being the right person for the job, that's not natural. Your boss should be the best or better than you, or at that point better than you. You're going to cut his legs and you're going to take his position by quality, not by scheming with other pink hair guys around or whatever you are. You understand what I'm saying? You know exactly what I'm saying. So the same is in the world. In the world, that's a law, that these laws of nature, let's call them this way, are there. There are some special cases sometimes. That's why you call them general rule and special cases to the rule. So when you see these guys, oh, you know what, Switzerland is so strong, or Denmark, or I don't know, the Netherlands, or the Belgians, or the Latvian, Estonians, and Lithuanians, these guys are so strong and they have big mouths. That's not normal. That's a guy with pink hair over there who's in a position with an alliance, or at least sucking someone else's thing, which is the United States of America, and they have a big mouth. In the real world, those guys will keep their mouth shut, will be like mice. Nothing. But they are big, so that's unnatural course of events. Now we go back to natural, which is what? The strong will smack the weak. You don't hear the, how do you call it, as I said, the Baltic states telling the Russians anything. Baltic states, 6.1 million people, total population. Tell the Russians, we're gonna do. Why do you think they dare? It's an unnatural situation. They are with another guy who actually confirms what I said, who's strong. So they're at a shade of a strong guy. So it's right there. So now they say, you know what, kids, go back and clean your room. The adults are talking here. That's exactly what's going on here. The Europeans are a paper tiger. They are irrelevant with these powers. I mean, they have their power, and unfortunately that was subverted by... Okay? It was subverted, and by other interests. Taken away. What do they have? It's a dying continent, unfortunately. Until you get some strong alternative for Deutschland and others that will just turn the things around. And in Great Britain, a lot of work must be done. We have to look back in history. Anyway, and copy certain things when certain nations came back like from the dust like the phoenix. And then the enemies strangled it again. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.